Millionaire made his pregnant wife sign divorce papers, then proposed to his mistress. The world loves a scandal, and few scandals can outshine the dazzling fall from grace of a proud millionaire who once had it all: power, wealth, and the illusion of a perfect marriage. This is the story of Andrew Wellington, heir to a legendary fortune, whose charismatic smile masked a heart consumed by ambition and betrayal. When his wife Jennifer Collins found herself pregnant, she believed it was their moment of bliss, only to be blindsided when Andrew presented her with divorce papers. But the drama doesn't end there. Unbeknownst to everyone, Andrew's new mistress was waiting in the shadows for a ring and a proposal that would set this tumultuous saga ablaze. Andrew Wellington was, by all public accounts, the epitome of success. Tall, with piercing blue eyes and neatly combed dark hair, he exuded confidence from every pore. People whispered that he was born in a suit impeccably tailored, no wrinkles allowed, even as an infant. Coming from one of the oldest moneyed families in Manhattan, Andrew wielded influence in the city's real estate and venture capital circles like a scepter. Wherever he went, cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, and charity galas vied for his presence. Jennifer Collins couldn't have been more different from Andrew's privileged circle. Growing up in a middle-class home in upstate New York, she knew the value of every dollar. Her parents, Maria and Stephen Collins, ran a modest but beloved bakery, where Jennifer spent her teenage afternoons kneading dough, icing cakes, and listening to customers confide their everyday hopes and woes. She was intelligent, warm-hearted, and unguardedly trusting. Perhaps that was what Andrew found so refreshing when they first met at a friend's gallery opening in Soho. Surrounded by superficial socialites, Jennifer was a breath of authenticity, wearing a simple floral sundress and sandals, while everyone else flaunted name-brand suits and glittering designer gowns. From that first encounter, their courtship was swift and intense. Andrew invited Jennifer to exclusive events, introduced her to philanthropic committees, and took her on spontaneous weekend getaways aboard his family's yacht. Their wedding, though lavish, showcased the bridging of two distinct worlds: hers, grounded in familial love and sincerity; his, drowned in wealth, deals, and lofty expectations. Jennifer, starry-eyed, believed she'd found her fairy tale prince. She didn't understand that the glitz and glamour she was stepping into could quickly turn cold and isolating. The first year of their marriage still felt like a dream. Andrew indulged in heartfelt gestures, late-night dinners, dance lessons, front-row seats at Broadway shows. Yet bit by bit, a distance crept in. He began working longer hours, attending mysterious meetings behind locked doors. He sometimes returned home in the early hours of the morning, smelling of fine whiskey and expensive perfume that wasn't Jennifer's. Though her intuition quietly sounded an alarm, she convinced herself it was stress, business, or just the glimmering remnants of some high society party where wives were unwelcome. She believed him when he said he was only networking. She believed him because she loved him. Then came the day Jennifer realized she was pregnant. She was overjoyed, convinced this was the miracle that would rekindle their love. Andrew's initial reaction was pleasant enough. He forced a bright smile and wrapped her in a nervous embrace. But Jennifer sensed he was a million miles away, as though his mind was already calculating how a baby would factor into his carefully manicured empire. Still, she clung to hope. She filled her days with prenatal appointments, reading parenting books, and planning a nursery in their lavish penthouse. On weekends, she pleaded with Andrew to attend childbirth classes. He always agreed, only to cancel last minute with an excuse about a sudden business trip or pressing phone call. Nights became lonelier, with Jennifer falling asleep in a half-empty bed. It was during this fragile time that Jennifer first heard the name Isabella Moretti. A slip of the tongue by Andrew's personal assistant, an errant text message on his phone, a rumour whispered among the staff. She was, by all accounts, a stunning and enigmatic figure. Born to a wealthy Italian family, and known on the social circuit for her sultry presence and cunning intellect, Isabella had a reputation that drew envy from women and admiration from men. Jennifer tried to brush it off as more mindless gossip, something high society thrived upon. But deep inside, anxiety gnawed at her. It wasn't just gossip. It felt like the truth. Weeks later, Andrew returned from a trip to Capri, supposedly a real estate conference, acting colder than ever. He avoided Jennifer's gaze, declined to join her for dinner, and spent hours locked in his study. The silent tension mounted until Jennifer decided to address it. She walked into the study one evening, her hands trembling over the slight bulge forming in her abdomen, and pleaded, "Andrew, talk to me. Is there something going on, something you need to tell me?" He looked up from his laptop, face impassive, and simply shook his head. "I'm just busy, Jennifer." That was all he said. No reassurance, no gentle touch, nothing. Days later, Jennifer discovered the damning text messages on Andrew's phone. She had gone into his study to grab his phone charger, a benign enough act, but the device lit up with a text from Isabella, "Miss you already, amor." Tonight was unforgettable. Another message from the day before read, "Can't wait for the day we can be together without secrets." Jennifer's knees buckled. She sank into a chair, her heart racing, breath ragged. The truth was no longer a shadowy doubt. It was real, and it shattered her entire world in an instant. In the days that followed, Jennifer tried to hide the painful knowledge from her husband, waiting for the right moment to confront him. She was terrified of losing him, of a scandal, of bringing a child into a home that might soon split apart. Meanwhile, Andrew's distant behavior verged on cruelty. He spent more time with Harriet Caldwell, the family's lawyer, than he did with Jennifer. Late into the night, Jennifer heard him on phone calls, his voice low and urgent. Each time she tiptoed down the hall, she caught snippets of Andrew mentioning documents, discretion, and financial arrangements. A fearful suspicion bloomed inside her. Andrew was drafting divorce papers. On a Wednesday morning, Jennifer drove to her obstetrician appointment alone. Dr. Joseph Matthews, a well-respected physician at Mount Sinai Hospital, greeted her kindly. He had once been the family doctor for the Wellingtons. Yet as Jennifer sat on the exam table for her ultrasound, she couldn't help but notice Dr. Matthews' careful tone when he asked about her stress levels. The standard medical questions seemed laced with caution, as if he suspected the turmoil in her personal life. Jennifer forced a tight smile, urging him not to worry. But her heart pounded as she watched the ultrasound monitor reveal the faint flicker of her baby's heartbeat. The sight brought tears to her eyes. This was her child, her miracle, a life that deserved better than a broken home, mired in betrayal. Leaving the hospital, Jennifer's phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "We need to talk. I'll be home by 6. Her stomach twisted. The phrase "we need to talk" loomed like a death knell over her fragile hopes. Sure enough, at 6 p.m., sharp, Andrew strolled into the penthouse living room, dropping a manila envelope on the coffee table. Without preamble, he spoke in his carefully measured tone. "Sign these. We'll settle financial terms. You'll be well taken care of." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Andrew, I'm pregnant with your child," she said, voice trembling with desperation. "Why would you do this now? How can you be so callous?" He glanced away, a fleeting hint of guilt crossing his face. Then, steeling himself, he replied, "It's for the best. We're not compatible anymore, Jennifer. I don't want you to suffer in a loveless marriage. I'll ensure our child is provided for." Before she could even process his words, Andrew turned and left the room, leaving the envelope behind like a toxic parting gift. With shaking hands, Jennifer picked it up and found pages upon pages of legal jargon. The final page demanded her signature, effectively severing her relationship with Andrew Wellington and the life she had fought so hard to build. For hours, Jennifer sat immobilized, the papers on her lap. Memories flashed through her mind, the day Andrew proposed on that yacht under the fireworks, how he had sworn to love and cherish her. Now, all she had left were broken promises and an unborn child whose father was already walking away. That night, she dreamed about a dark ocean. She was alone on a tiny raft, storm clouds overhead, trying to shield her unborn baby from the howling winds. Andrew's voice echoed from somewhere far away, urging her to sign on the dotted line. She woke up in a cold sweat, tears streaming down her face. Her phone buzzed with another text, this time from Daniel Harrington, Andrew's longtime friend, who had always shown concern for Jennifer. "I heard something troubling. Are you okay?" Jennifer debated, responding. Ultimately, she couldn't face the pity or the questions. She left it unanswered, uncertain of who was truly in her corner anymore. The cruel reality was sinking in. Andrew Wellington, once her knight in shining armor, was now her chief adversary. 2 days later, Andrew insisted they have a formal meeting at Harriet Caldwell's office. Jennifer arrived, shoulders tense, heart fluttering with dread. Harriet, a stern woman with iron-grey hair pulled into a tight bun, greeted Jennifer with frosty politeness. Andrew was already there, seated in a plush leather chair, expression unreadable. Harriet slid another set of papers across the mahogany desk. "Miss S. Wellington," she began, "we can expedite this process, but we need your cooperation." Jennifer's voice quivered. "I can't do this right now. She hesitated, tears threatening to spill. "I'm pregnant. We're supposed to be a family." Harriet's mouth pressed into a thin line. "We understand, Miss S. Wellington. However, Mr. Wellington is committed to ensuring you receive substantial support. You won't be financially compromised. Money, always money." The cold efficiency with which Andrew and his lawyer regarded her heartbreak was staggering. Jennifer glanced at Andrew, hoping for a flicker of kindness, but his gaze remained distant. She stood abruptly, pressing a hand to her stomach. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. Then she fled, tears streaming down her cheeks. In the aftermath, Jennifer sought refuge at her mother's home upstate. Maria Collins welcomed her daughter with open arms, horrified by Andrew's actions, while the gentle hum of the bakery downstairs reminded Jennifer of simpler times. Her mind never truly escaped the swirling chaos waiting back in Manhattan. She confided in her mother over tea in the cozy living room. "He wants to tear our family apart before it's even begun," Jennifer sobbed. "I just don't understand how someone can change so drastically." Maria patted her daughter's hand. "He's always been ambitious, honey. I remember the first time he came here, how restless he looked, checking his watch, sizing up our little bakery like it was beneath him. But I never thought he'd be so cruel." They talked through the afternoon, trying to weigh Jennifer's options. Maria insisted that Jennifer should stand up to Andrew, prove the marriage was worth saving. Yet in Jennifer's heart, doubt festered. She couldn't win the affection of a man who'd already given his heart, and possibly his soul, to another woman. That evening, Jennifer received a phone call from Daniel Harrington, who had been Andrew's best friend since college. She decided to pick up this time, curiosity and desperation overriding her fear of pity. "Jennifer," Daniel began, his voice laced with concern, "I just heard about the divorce. I wanted you to know I'm here if you need anything." Against her better judgment, Jennifer decided to share at least part of her turmoil. In halting sentences, she told Daniel about the pregnancy, the betrayal, and the divorce papers. Daniel sighed heavily. "I suspected something was off with Andrew lately." He's been acting strange, especially since he started meeting up with Isabella Moretti more frequently. I tried to warn him not to ruin what he has with you, but he wouldn't listen. Jennifer's voice caught in her throat. It hurts more than I can explain. I never imagined we'd end up here. Let me help, Daniel said softly. Andrew trusts me, and I still have some influence over him. Maybe I can talk sense into him. Jennifer hung up, torn between relief and skepticism. She knew Andrew valued Daniel's opinion, but she also recognized Andrew was fully enchanted by Isabella. A last-ditch effort might be too little, too late. Days later, Daniel invited Jennifer to a lunch in Manhattan to discuss potential strategies. They met at a quiet bistro, far from the usual paparazzi-laden hotspots that Andrew frequented. Daniel, with his warm brown eyes and gentle demeanor, looked genuinely pained by Jennifer's distress. She laid out everything: her heartbreak, her fear for the baby, her confusion over how Andrew could flip like a switch. Daniel listened intently, then confessed something that chilled Jennifer to the bone. Andrew's father, the late Mark Wellington, arranged a complex trust fund that grants Andrew full control of the family fortune, but it comes with certain clauses. One of them states that if Andrew divorces without producing a legitimate heir, his share reverts partly to philanthropic trusts, specifically funds managed by Warren Buffett's philanthropic circle. I discovered references to this while working with Andrew on a property deal last year. My guess is, if Andrew divorces you before the baby is born, he thinks he can circumvent that clause by claiming the marriage was untenable. You and the baby would be cut out of certain entitlements unless you sign a mutual agreement. Jennifer reeled. You're saying he's divorcing me partly to protect his fortune from his own child? Daniel shook his head. Not exactly, but it's twisted. He might be trying to renegotiate terms behind the scenes. Isabella also has her eyes on his money. I've overheard her persuading him to secure everything before the baby arrives. She's manipulative, Jennifer. She's pushing for control. A spark of anger flared in Jennifer's eyes. Andrew's betrayal now felt even more sinister. It wasn't just about love lost, it was about financial power and a mistress eager to sink her claws into the Wellington empire. Jennifer realized in that moment that she needed to fight not just for her own dignity, but for her unborn child's future. Back at the Wellington penthouse, Andrew was meticulously planning a grand soiree, an elite charity gala underwritten by the Family Foundation. The event would be the perfect stage to introduce the world to the next phase of his life, or so he believed. Isabella Moretti, the rumored mistress, had returned from Europe and was already making waves among New York's upper crust. Her appearance at the gala would undoubtedly cause a stir. Jennifer learned about this event through a society column, ironically penned by Harriet Samuels in the Palm Beach Post, who mentioned Andrew Wellington and his close friend Isabella Moretti were hosting a major charity auction. The mention of Isabella in the same breath as Andrew's philanthropic endeavors felt like a slap to the face. Jennifer recognized Isabella's infiltration was swift and merciless. She was asserting her presence on Andrew's arm publicly, effectively pushing Jennifer into the shadows. While Andrew finalized the gala's guest list, Jennifer grew determined to attend uninvited if she had to. If Andrew wanted to flaunt Isabella in public, Jennifer would not be cowering at her mother's bakery. She wanted Andrew to see her, to remember she was no pushover, that she refused to vanish quietly. The night of the gala arrived. Jennifer chose a form-fitting, floor-length gown in emerald green that subtly accentuated her pregnant figure. She styled her hair in soft waves, applied a bold red lipstick, and carried herself with a calm poise she hardly felt inside. Paparazzi lined the plush carpet leading into the grand ballroom. Flashes exploded in quick succession as she emerged from a black sedan, her face resolute. Inside, the room was a spectacle of opulent chandeliers dripping with crystals, tables adorned with fresh orchids, and waiters circulating with trays of champagne. Jennifer spotted Andrew almost immediately, standing by the stage with Isabella by his side. Isabella was everything the rumors promised: tall, model-like, in a shimmering silver gown that clung to her every curve. Her dark hair spilled seductively over one shoulder, and her fingers were entwined with Andrew's in a manner far too intimate for a business associate. The moment Andrew's eyes locked on Jennifer, a flicker of surprise, then annoyance, crossed his features. He whispered something to Isabella, who turned and followed his gaze. A smirk curved Isabella's red lips, as if mocking Jennifer's presence. Summoning every ounce of composure, Jennifer approached them. "Andrew," she said politely, her voice only trembling slightly. "I didn't realize our charity events were invite-only these days." Andrew swallowed, likely thrown off by Jennifer's boldness. "Jennifer, this is not the place." "I'm in the middle of—" Isabella cut in, extending a manicured hand. "Isabella Moretti. Lovely to meet you, Jennifer. I've heard so much about you." Jennifer forced a polite smile. "I'm sure you have." Tension crackled in the air. Guests in the vicinity sensed the awkwardness. Glancing curiously at the trio, Andrew cleared his throat and placed a hand on Isabella's back as though staking his claim. "We're here for an important cause tonight. Let's not make a scene." Without warning, Jennifer's voice rose, not quite loud enough to cause a disruption, but enough to catch Andrew off guard. "Is that what you told our unborn child? That it's not the place for them either?" Andrew's jaw tightened. Isabella's eyes sparkled with triumph, as though Jennifer's raw emotion was exactly the reaction she wanted. Before more words could be exchanged, Daniel Harrington sidled up to them, taking Jennifer gently by the elbow. "Jennifer, let's step outside for a moment." She allowed herself to be guided out onto the terrace, where the city skyline glittered under the night sky. She took deep, shaky breaths, tears threatening to spill over. "I couldn't let him publicly flaunt her without reminding him he still has responsibilities," she murmured. Daniel nodded. "I understand. But trust me, humiliating him in public isn't going to solve anything. He's too proud. He'll dig in harder." As they stood there, Harriet Samuels, the Society columnist, emerged, camera in hand. She'd caught wind of the friction. Instinctively, Daniel maneuvered to shield Jennifer from any prying questions. "No comment, Harriet," he insisted, leading Jennifer away before she became the night's gossip headline. The following morning, Jennifer woke up to a flurry of social media posts and tabloid headlines about the awkward triangle at the Wellington Gala. While Andrew's PR team scrambled to spin the story, Jennifer realized the public now had a taste of the drama. The facade of the perfect Wellington marriage was crumbling fast. An urgent message blinked on Jennifer's phone from Harriet Caldwell's office, demanding that she finalize the divorce settlement or face an aggressive legal approach. Jennifer read the message with cold dread. Andrew was done pretending to care for her feelings. He wanted her out of the picture. After hours of contemplation, Jennifer decided to seek her own legal counsel. She contacted a recommended attorney, Margaret Healy, who specialized in high-profile family disputes. In a sunlit conference room overlooking Central Park, Jennifer recounted her story: her marriage to Andrew, the discovery of his affair, the pregnancy, and the trust fund clauses that Daniel had revealed. Margaret took meticulous notes, her hazel eyes narrowing. "You have more power here than you realize," she said, tapping a pen against her notebook. "If you can prove Andrew is divorcing you in bad faith, especially under pressure from Isabella, and that financial motivations play a role in disclaiming paternity or cutting you out, you can fight for a substantial settlement. More importantly, you can secure a future for your child." Jennifer exhaled a shaky breath. "I don't want a drawn-out court battle. I just want what's fair for the baby." Margaret's expression softened. "I understand. However, From what you've shared, Andrew is less likely to respond to emotional pleas. He's built a fortress around his empire. We need to be strategic. Within the next week, Jennifer signed a retainer with Margaret. They filed motions to contest the initial divorce papers, demanding more favorable terms and stating the unborn child's interests. The legal war had officially begun. While the lawyers dueled in offices and courtrooms, Jennifer found herself grappling with a surge of mixed emotions: love, anger, betrayal, fear. Nights blurred into restless dreams, and even daily tasks felt like navigating a fog. The baby's gentle kicks reminded her that life persisted within her, a quiet beacon of hope in this storm. During one of her sleepless nights, Jennifer recalled how she had first caught a glimpse of Andrew's complexity. It was at a dinner party early in their relationship, when Mark Wellington, the patriarch, was still alive. Over cigars and brandy, Mark boasted about the Wellington legacy, regaling guests with tales of power and wealth. Jennifer had noticed Andrew's jaw clench, the way his eyes flashed resentment whenever his father bragged about controlling the family's direction. She realized now that Andrew's ruthless streak might be inherited. Mark had molded Andrew to protect the family fortune at all costs. At times, Jennifer couldn't help but wonder if Andrew had ever truly loved her, or if she had simply been a charming addition to his public image. Perhaps, in the early days, he'd been attracted to her sincerity, her warmth, and her refusal to be impressed by his money. But ambition and greed had a way of corroding even the purest feelings. One afternoon, seeking a distraction, Jennifer flipped through the social pages. She paused on an old article discussing Andrew's philanthropic partnership with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, praising his youth and vision. Photographs showed Andrew shaking hands with the billionaires at a foundation dinner. The same piece mentioned Mark Wellington's philanthropic trusts, those that might revert to charity if Andrew's marriage didn't produce an heir. There it was, a real, tangible hint that the Wellington Empire was always overshadowed by carefully orchestrated legalities. Feeling an odd urge to verify the details, Jennifer scheduled a meeting with Daniel Harrington, who had access to many of the Wellington archives. She wanted clarity about the trust fund stipulations, everything her father-in-law had orchestrated from beyond the grave. They met in Daniel's downtown office, quiet on a late Friday afternoon. Tall windows overlooked the bustling city streets. "I appreciate you coming," Jennifer began. "I need to be absolutely certain about these legal details that might affect my child." Daniel nodded and produced a couple of folders. "I looked into the Mark Wellington Trust. It's complicated, but one thing stands out. If Andrew has a legitimate heir, that child is entitled to a certain portion of the estate, managed in trust until adulthood. If Andrew divorces you before the child is born, he might try to contest paternity or negotiate the trust's disbursement. That's likely why Harriet Caldwell is pressing so hard for a swift divorce. They want to avoid additional claims." Jennifer's anger simmered. He's trying to pretend the child isn't his so he can protect his money. That's deplorable. Daniel's gaze softened. "I don't think he'll outright deny paternity if you force the issue. He might, however, try to manipulate you into a settlement that's less than what the child is legally entitled to." Jennifer swallowed hard, hating that she had to think of her unborn baby in terms of financial battles. But Andrew had forced her hand. Meanwhile, Isabella Moretti was reveling in her role as Andrew's new muse. She moved into a lavish apartment just blocks from Andrew's penthouse. The tabloids were rife with speculation about their burgeoning romance, especially after they were spotted vacationing in street barts together. Behind the scenes, however, Andrew's business interests were taking a hit. Rumors of his messy personal life made investors skittish and potential partners worried about Andrew's judgment. Some of his board members at Wellington Ventures questioned his decision-making, while others quietly distanced themselves, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire of a scandal. One evening, Andrew invited Isabella to a private dinner in the penthouse. The day had been rough. His phone buzzed non-stop with calls from Harriet about the divorce proceedings. Documents from Margaret Healy indicated that Jennifer was pushing for spousal support, a robust trust for the child, and a share of the Wellington assets that rivaled what Mark Wellington's trust would have mandated anyway. If Andrew refused, they'd see him in court. Isabella sipped her wine, her dark eyes dancing with intrigue. "Darling, you can't let that woman run circles around you. Didn't you mention you wanted to propose to me once this is over? How can we move forward with a costly legal battle weighing us down?" Andrew pinched the bridge of his nose. "You don't think I know that? I'm working on it. But Jennifer has a top-notch attorney." Isabella's smile was cunning. "We can't have her winning public sympathy, especially not with that baby on the way. Let your lawyers handle the negotiations. We focus on us, on our future." She leaned in, resting a hand on Andrew's thigh. "Once the baby's born, you'll pay child support, but that doesn't mean she has to get half the kingdom." Andrew stared at his wineglass. "I never wanted it to escalate like this. Things were supposed to be smooth and private." Isabella laughed softly, the sound chilling. "We can't always dictate how these things play out, but we can make sure we come out on top." Andrew forced a tight smile, but inside, unease roiled. He thought back to a conversation he once had with Jennifer early in their marriage about wanting a stable family, a legacy built on something more than money. Now, that ideal felt like a foreign dream. He had chosen ambition, lust, and greed. There was no turning back. Weeks blurred with court filings, depositions, and tense negotiations. Jennifer continued living with her mother in upstate New York, finding moments of solace in the bakery. Kneading dough became a meditation, a reminder that life could still be simple and wholesome. Each passing day, her baby bump grew more visible, fueling her resolve to persevere. One afternoon, while helping her mother decorate a wedding cake, Jennifer felt a sharp pang in her abdomen, followed by dizziness. Alarmed, Maria rushed her to the local clinic, where Dr. Robert Green, a longtime family friend, performed a checkup. After an ultrasound and some tests, he looked at Jennifer seriously. "You're under an incredible amount of stress, and it's affecting your blood pressure. You need rest and minimal anxiety, especially in your second trimester. If this continues, you risk complications." Jennifer nodded, tears brimming. "I'm trying, Dr. Green, but everything in my life is spiraling." Maria placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Your health and the baby come first. We'll find a way to reduce the stress." That evening, Jennifer called Margaret Healy, telling her about the doctor's recommendation. Margaret immediately filed motions for a temporary restraining order against excessive legal harassment, requesting that Andrew's team refrain from unnecessary contact and intimidation. It was a small victory, giving Jennifer a chance to breathe. Ironically, with the legal hounds muzzled, at least temporarily, Andrew found himself in an awkward position. Isabella grew impatient, demanding updates about the divorce's progress and pushing Andrew for a marriage proposal. Andrew promised her it was only a matter of time, but the more pressure Isabella applied, the more Andrew felt the walls closing in. As autumn leaves began to fade, Andrew received notice that Jennifer was due in court to finalize a few details regarding financial disclosures. Reluctantly, he flew upstate, deciding to check on her under the guise of facilitating legal documents. Upon arrival, he stepped into the bakery's comforting aroma of freshly baked bread, so out of place compared to the Manhattan high-rises and penthouse boardrooms. He found Jennifer behind the counter, gently wiping flour from her hands. Their eyes met across the small, homey space. For the first time in months, Andrew hesitated, as if grappling with regret. Up close, Jennifer's pregnancy was undeniable, her face softer, her belly rounded. She looked exhausted yet radiant, a testament to the new life inside her. "What do you want, Andrew?" she asked quietly, refusing to display any vulnerability. Andrew tried to muster indifference, but his voice wavered. "I'm here for the hearing tomorrow. Harriet Caldwell asked me to sign some documents." He paused, then awkwardly added, "You look, well." A bitter laugh escaped Jennifer's lips. "I'm trying to be well, despite everything." Silence stretched between them. The memory of love once shared lingered in the air, mingling with the sweet scent of cinnamon rolls. Andrew's gaze dropped to Jennifer's stomach. "How is the baby?" he asked, voice hushed. Jennifer studied him. It might have been the first time he'd shown a hint of genuine concern since she announced her pregnancy. "The baby is fine, thanks to me. I'm doing everything I can to ensure that remains true." Andrew nodded, guilt flickering across his features. But before he could form another word, Maria emerged from the back, eyes narrowing at the sight of her son-in-law. She offered no greeting, only a curt nod. Andrew took it as a sign that his welcome was limited. "I'll see you in court," he murmured, turning to leave. Jennifer stood still, heart pounding. She realized how Andrew's momentary glimpse of concern didn't erase the betrayal, nor did it solve the looming battle over their child's future. The next day, the small-town courthouse was abuzz. Reporters had descended, keen to capture every nuance of the high-profile couple's drama. Margaret Healy and Harriet Caldwell exchanged chilly pleasantries outside the courtroom, their respective clients standing on opposite sides. Inside, the judge reviewed the motions. Jennifer found herself trembling under the courthouse's fluorescent lighting. She was asked to testify about her financial situation, her efforts to support the unborn child, and her understanding of Andrew's responsibilities. Harriet Caldwell peppered her with pointed questions, insinuating that she was trying to trap Andrew for financial gain. Margaret rose swiftly in objection. "Miss S. Wellington is merely requesting the support and recognition owed by law for her unborn child. Mr. Wellington's mistress is publicly flaunting their relationship, and the abruptness of these divorce proceedings strongly suggests an intent to deprive Mrs. Wellington of her rightful share." The judge, a stern-faced woman, rapped her gavel lightly. "I've heard enough on this matter for today. Given Mrs. Wellington's medical concerns, I'm inclined to grant a protective order limiting the frequency of direct legal confrontations until after the baby is born. Additionally, Mr. Wellington will be responsible for medical expenses related to the pregnancy. We will reconvene for further negotiations in a month." With that, the session concluded. Jennifer sighed in relief, though the weight of uncertainty remained. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Andrew hurried into a sleek black car, Isabella at his side, while Jennifer watched from the steps, fighting back tears. The final confrontation was still pending, and the pressure was rising. In a move that stunned even the tabloids, Andrew proposed to Isabella Moretti during a grand party at the Waldorf Astoria the following week. The spectacle was as ostentatious as one might expect. A 10-carat diamond ring, a string quartet, champagne flutes brimming with vintage Dom Perignon. Flashy images of Isabella's triumphant smile, ring glittering under the chandelier, dominated the next morning's headlines. Jennifer watched the coverage from her bedroom, tears coursing silently down her cheeks. There it was, the father of her child, publicly pledging himself to another woman, effectively erasing Jennifer from his life as though she were a trivial footnote. Anger bubbled in her chest, but overshadowing it was a deep sorrow. She mourned not just her shattered marriage, but the illusions she once cherished, a future built on love and partnership. When she could compose herself, she called Daniel. His voice sounded weary. "I'm sorry, Jennifer. He's letting Isabella dictate his life now." Jennifer took a shaky breath. "I won't let them destroy mine. I'm going to protect my baby, and I'll do whatever it takes." Behind the scenes, Isabella reveled in her new fiancé status. She made appearances on society talk shows, sashayed down red carpets on Andrew's arm, and dropped hints about a lavish wedding in Lake Como. Yet Andrew's business woes grew deeper. Several major investors, wary of personal scandals, withdrew or froze their capital commitments. Even within the Wellington family trust, murmurs arose about Andrew's judgment, questioning if he was tarnishing a once-respected brand. Isabella consoled Andrew with empty platitudes. "They'll come around. Money follows success, and will generate success as soon as this divorce is settled. Besides, we can rebrand, start fresh." But Andrew began noticing subtle, warning signs, messages on Isabella's phone from unknown names, glimpses of suspicious receipts for high-end purchases in her name that he hadn't approved. When he questioned her, Isabella brushed it off with a tinkling laugh. "A girl needs her indulgences, darling. Let's not bicker over petty details." Late one night, Andrew awakened to find Isabella talking in hushed whispers on her phone. The conversation ended abruptly when she realized he was listening. A small seed of doubt took root in Andrew's mind. He had risked everything for this woman. Had he miscalculated her loyalty? In the final weeks of Jennifer's pregnancy, she encountered increasing discomfort and bouts of fatigue. Maria insisted that Jennifer avoid any stress, but the legal proceedings had reached another critical juncture. Andrew and Jennifer were scheduled for a mediation session, their last attempt to settle before a full-blown trial. The mediators, assigned by the court, urged compromise. Margaret Healy laid out Jennifer's demands: a guaranteed trust for the child, full coverage of all medical and education expenses, and a reasonable spousal support package. Andrew, seated across the table, fidgeted with his pen. Isabella's presence hovered in the corridor like a malevolent spectre, even though she wasn't allowed inside the mediation room. Andrew's lawyer, Harriet, offered a counter-proposal, a lump sum payment and minimal child support contingent on Jennifer signing a non-disclosure agreement about the Wellington family affairs. The mediator frowned, sensing the imbalance. "Mr. Wellington, you understand that your unborn child is entitled to more than a token gesture." Andrew's eyes flickered with frustration. "She's trying to take advantage of my name," he said, his voice wavering with the same rehearsed indignation Harriet had used in court. But the words rang hollow. He knew better than anyone how the trust's clauses worked, and how he was attempting to secure his empire for Isabella. Jennifer's calm facade crumbled. She stood, placing a protective hand over her belly. "I won't let you reduce our baby to a line item on a balance sheet." Andrew averted his gaze, saying nothing. In that moment, Jennifer realized that the man she'd once loved was trapped by pride and manipulation. He was unwilling to break free, even if it meant sacrificing his integrity. Unable to reach an agreement, the mediator declared the session at an impasse. They'd have to proceed to court after the child's birth, as the judge had previously ruled that Jennifer's health was paramount. Life has a way of refusing to wait for the perfect moment. Late one evening, Jennifer was rushed to the hospital with contractions. She was nearly a month early, her nerves frayed, her body exhausted from the stress. Maria held her hand through the labor, tears of worry in her eyes. After an arduous delivery, Jennifer welcomed a baby boy into the world, Lucas Wellington Collins. The moment she held him, her heart flooded with a love so fierce it eclipsed every fear, every betrayal. His tiny fingers wrapped around hers, reassuring her that no matter how bleak things seemed, they had each other. Word of the birth reached Andrew via Daniel. For a moment, Andrew felt his chest constrict with emotions he couldn't name: regret, longing, maybe even love. But Isabella insisted. "She'll use this baby to bleed you dry, Andrew." Torn and conflicted, Andrew arrived at the hospital the next day, flowers in hand, faced with the reality of fatherhood. He found Jennifer cradling Lucas in a quiet room, dim lights casting soft shadows. Something in Andrew's expression shifted as he saw the baby. He reached out, gently brushing the infant's cheek with the back of his hand. Lucas stirred, blinking up at this stranger. Tears blurred Andrew's vision. He'd never felt so vulnerable. But Isabella's voice echoed in his mind, reminding him of the divorce, the legal fights, the future he was building with her. Abruptly, he pulled away as though remembering his role. Jennifer watched, tears in her eyes. She didn't speak, sensing the battle raging inside him. For one fleeting moment, she saw the Andrew she fell in love with, the one who once promised her the world. Then he turned and left the room, as if to escape the consequences of his own choices. As Jennifer recovered, a storm brewed in Andrew's life. He discovered that Isabella had been siphoning funds from various business accounts into a private offshore holding. Suspicious invoices and shady transactions revealed she'd been meticulously funneling money away, presumably to secure her own future. The revelation cut Andrew to the core. He'd betrayed Jennifer for this woman, only to be used as a stepping stone in Isabella's quest for wealth. Desperate to salvage his finances and reputation, Andrew confronted Isabella in their penthouse one stormy evening. Rain lashed the windows as thunder shook the building. "You've been stealing from me," he accused, voice trembling with fury and hurt. "Why?" Isabella didn't even bother denying it. She rolled her eyes, leaning casually against the kitchen island. "Call it an insurance policy, dear. You made grand promises about a future together, but we both know money is the real power here. Don't pretend you're any different." Andrew clenched his fists, the weight of his own hypocrisy pressing down on him. He had chosen greed and ambition over loyalty. Now he was reaping the results. "We're done," he spat, grabbing his coat. "Get out, or I'll call the authorities." Isabella merely smirked, slipping a diamond ring off her finger and setting it on the counter. "Keep the ring, keep your empire. I have what I need." She walked out into the night, leaving Andrew to realize that the empire he'd fought so hard to protect now felt like a hollow shell. In the days that followed, Andrew's life became a whirlwind of damage control. He pursued legal action against Isabella, locked down the compromised accounts, and faced the scorn of colleagues who had warned him about letting personal drama interfere with business. The tabloids delighted in the fallout. Wellington's Mistress flees with fortune screamed headlines. Amid the chaos, Andrew found himself thinking about Lucas. He reached out to Jennifer, requesting permission to visit their son. Reluctantly, Jennifer agreed, on the condition that Andrew came alone with no lawyers in tow. When Andrew arrived at the Collins home, the atmosphere felt tense, but less hostile than before. Maria, watching from a distance, offered a polite nod, though it was clear she harbored deep resentment. Jennifer invited Andrew into the nursery, where Lucas lay in a crib decorated with soft blues and whites. The baby stirred, and Andrew gently lifted him, heart thudding in his chest. The tiny weight of Lucas in his arms felt monumental. Glancing up, Andrew noticed tears shimmering in Jennifer's eyes. She stood quietly, arms crossed, protective. He knew he didn't deserve her forgiveness or even a second chance. But the love he felt for his son was undeniable, and for the first time, Andrew realized how severely he had damaged everything that truly mattered. Jennifer's voice was soft when she finally spoke. "He's healthy, strong. The doctor said he'll catch up quickly, even though he was early." Andrew nodded, rocking Lucas slowly. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice cracking, "for everything." Tears rolled down Jennifer's cheeks, but she didn't reply. The apology was so small, so late, it could hardly mend the months of betrayal and anguish. Still, Andrew's willingness to show vulnerability in front of his son was a start, maybe a fragile step, toward redemption. Over the next weeks, Andrew made an effort to be present for Lucas, offering financial support, checking on him regularly, even volunteering to babysit. He hired a team of nannies and child development specialists, but Jennifer remained cautious, not wanting Lucas to be used as a pawn in Andrew's quest to repair his public image. They continued to have tense phone calls about the final divorce settlement, but both agreed Lucas deserved the best possible environment. One afternoon, Andrew arrived unannounced with a stuffed bear larger than the crib. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "He's not old enough to appreciate that," she remarked, though a hint of amusement glinted in her eyes. Andrew rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "I realize that. I guess. I just want him to have what I never did." Jennifer frowned, confused. "You had everything money could buy, everything except two parents who genuinely loved each other," Andrew admitted. "My father was always away, handling business, and my mother, she indulged her own social life. I barely saw them together unless it was a photo op." For a moment, sympathy welled up in Jennifer. She placed the oversized bear aside. "Andrew, money can't erase the damage you've done. But if you truly want to be a father, to be in Lucas's life, you need to step up consistently and do the right thing. No more manipulations." Andrew nodded, his expression earnest. "I will." Eventually, the postponed court date arrived, set to finalize custody, child support, and the divorce terms. Jennifer was adamant that while she didn't trust Andrew romantically, she would allow co-parenting if it was in Lucas's best interest. Margaret Healy strategized that a fair settlement could be reached if Andrew accepted responsibility without dragging Jennifer into further legal warfare. Andrew, chastened by Isabella's betrayal and desperate to salvage whatever was left of his integrity, approached Harriet Caldwell with instructions to offer generous concessions to Jennifer. Harriet, though initially taken aback, complied. In a dramatic twist, Andrew took the stand during the hearing and confessed, under oath, that his affair and financial motivations played a significant role in filing for divorce. He admitted to orchestrating a scenario where Jennifer was pressured to sign the papers, acknowledging that his actions were cruel and self-serving. Jennifer listened, tears in her eyes, as Andrew publicly owned up to his wrongdoing. While it didn't erase her pain, his confession paved the way for a more compassionate settlement. The judge commended both sides for finally reaching a reasonable agreement, full shared custody, a substantial trust for Lucas, and a fair spousal support arrangement that allowed Jennifer to rebuild her life independently. In the hallway after court, Andrew approached Jennifer hesitantly. She studied him for a moment, remembering the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the man she once loved. "Thank you," she said softly, "for telling the truth." He sighed, the weight of months of deceit lifting from his shoulders. "I owed you that much." With the divorce officially granted, Jennifer began a new chapter. She moved into a modest but comfortable apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood, using part of the settlement to secure a stable future for Lucas. She also expanded her mother's bakery business, investing in modern equipment and marketing to attract a broader customer base. The simple life she always cherished started to blossom again, this time enriched by the bond she shared with her son. Andrew, on the other hand, worked tirelessly to repair his fractured reputation and stabilize Wellington Ventures. He took a step back from the limelight, focusing more on responsible leadership. Occasionally, he reflected on how he had nearly lost himself in pursuit of a mistress's approval, only to discover she was using him all along. It was a painful lesson, but one that reshaped his priorities. He and Jennifer maintained a cordial relationship for Lucas's sake. Weekend visits and shared holidays became opportunities to foster a sense of family for their son. Each time Andrew saw Lucas giggle or take a tentative step, he felt a pang of regret that he hadn't chosen fatherhood over ambition from the beginning. Months passed, each day a little brighter than the last. Lucas reached milestones: his first smile, first crawl, first babbling words. Jennifer relished motherhood, discovering a quiet strength she never knew she possessed. Supportive friends, new business ventures, and the unwavering love of her mother helped her heal from Andrew's betrayal. Then, on a warm spring afternoon, Andrew asked if he could take Lucas to the park, hoping to spend quality time outdoors. Jennifer agreed, cautiously optimistic. Watching from a park bench, she saw Andrew kneel in the grass, gently guiding Lucas's tiny steps. The sun filtered through the trees, illuminating the scene like a painting. For a fleeting moment, Jennifer felt a sense of bittersweet contentment. Their marriage was over, but something sacred, a shared love for Lucas, remained. When Andrew returned, Lucas giggling happily in his arms, he offered Jennifer a rare, genuine smile. "He's growing so fast," Andrew murmured, eyes filled with wonder. "Thank you for letting me be a part of this." She nodded, noticing that while the regret in his expression remained, it was tempered by sincere affection for their child. Life had shattered their union, but it had also woven them together in a new way. And so ends this tumultuous chapter of betrayal, heartbreak, and redemption, an extraordinary reminder that even in life's darkest hours, hope can still flicker. Andrew Wellington, once blinded by power and seduced by greed, ultimately faced the staggering price of his choices. Jennifer Collins, fortified by unwavering determination and the love of those who stood by her, proved that one can rise above ruin and protect what truly matters. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If you found yourself captivated by Jennifer's resilience, Andrew's downfall, and the ultimate triumph of love for their son, Lucas, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Share this story with friends who might need inspiration in their own struggles. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama fiction that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Together, let's continue exploring tales that remind us, no storm lasts forever.
They say every grand love story has a twist, but no one expects it to end with heartbreak splashed across front pages. Ana Mendoza was an ordinary woman with extraordinary dreams until she fell in love with the dashing millionaire William Rutherford. Their whirlwind romance dazzled everyone. Charity galas, lavish vacations, and a fairy tale wedding that made headlines. But sometimes, even the most magical stories hide a dark undercurrent. When Anna discovered she was pregnant, William's reaction unleashed a chain of events no one saw coming: betrayal, revenge, and a shocking exposé that rocked high society. This is the story of how one woman fought back. Ana Mendoza grew up in a modest neighborhood in Austin, Texas. She was the eldest daughter of a mechanic, Miguel Mendoza, and a hard-working nurse, Patricia Mendoza. Money was always tight, but love was abundant in their small home, painted a cheerful turquoise at the corner of Oakwood and Hampton Street. Anna learned early on the values of resilience and kindness. She was taught that hard work trumped shortcuts, and that love was a priceless gift rather than a commodity. Despite these humble beginnings, Anna stood out for her spirit and intelligence. She excelled in her studies, dreaming of one day becoming a journalist who could shed light on injustices around the world. While her ambitions soared, so did her curiosity about life beyond her humble neighborhood. She pored over newspapers and magazines, dissecting news stories and analyzing the high-profile lives of the wealthy. She read about entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and admired how philanthropic giving could change entire communities, yet was often frustrated that powerful people could also remain blind to the struggles of others. After graduating with top honors from a local high school, Anna managed to secure a scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin. She majored in communications and minored in political science, hoping to sharpen her writing skills and focus on global issues. During college, she volunteered at a local newspaper, the Austin Tribune, under the guidance of an old-school editor named Harriet Sullivan, who taught Anna to investigate thoroughly and write passionately. Anna's keen eye for detail and empathetic approach to storytelling gained her recognition. One fateful evening at a charity fundraiser for children's literacy, Anna caught the eye of William Rutherford, a charismatic millionaire investor originally from New York. William was in his late 30s and already known for his wide-ranging portfolio tech startups, real estate, sustainable energy. He was regularly photographed in the society pages, standing beside celebrities like Sofia Vergara and high-profile entrepreneurs at events in Manhattan and Los Angeles. Though unattached officially, the rumor mill frequently speculated about his love life. In person, William radiated the sophistication of old money, but had the hunger for risk, typical of self-made moguls. They locked eyes across the bustling fundraiser. Anna was there reporting for the college news section, taking pictures of the prominent philanthropists in attendance. William, fresh from a business trip to Hong Kong, was leaning casually against a marble pillar, swirling a glass of champagne. Sparks flared when he walked up to her, introduced himself with a smooth confidence, and offered to help sponsor the literacy campaign. Anna was taken aback by how gracious he seemed. He asked about her goals, her volunteer work, and her writing aspirations. That night, she wrote an article featuring William's contribution to the fundraiser. Little did she know her short piece would spark a chain of emails between them. He reached out to thank her for the flattering coverage. She demurred, noting it was just the facts. William, intrigued by her humility and intelligence, invited her out for coffee. Anna accepted partly out of curiosity, partly because his sophisticated presence was hard to ignore. Their coffee date at a trendy cafe off campus felt like the start of a fantasy. William asked about her background, her dreams, her family, and even her struggles. In turn, Anna learned about his early life. The Rutherfords had once been wealthy landowners, but after his father's series of poor investments, William had to rebuild the family's fortune practically from scratch. He was still deeply shaped by that fall from grace, driving him to fiercely safeguard his successes and carefully manage his public image. Soon, one coffee date turned into dinner dates, which turned into weekend trips. Anna felt she was living someone else's life, flying out to Miami on William's private jet, wearing designer dresses he'd insisted on gifting her, attending philanthropic gatherings in New York and London. Her parents were both proud and worried. They'd never seen Anna so happy yet, so far from home. Meanwhile, Anna found herself in the eye of a social hurricane. Paparazzi occasionally snapped pictures of her, and William gossip blogs wondered about the new mystery woman. Over time, though, she grew used to the media glare. After 2 breathtaking years together, William proposed on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. A string quartet played softly in the background, surrounded by discreet security to keep prying cameras away. Anna, shocked but overjoyed, said yes through tears of happiness. They were married 6 months later, in a grand ceremony at a historic estate in the Hamptons. The wedding photos made front-page news in society columns. The millionaire from New York weds the smart Texan journalist. Their first dance was to a live performance of At Last by Etta James's tribute singer. Their honeymoon in Bali was a swirl of rose petals, beach sunsets, and whispered promises of a bright future. For a time, life felt perfect. Anna had a husband who was wealthy, generous, and unbelievably romantic. She'd put her journalism career on temporary hold. At William's request, he insisted she take time to enjoy married life and offered to help her start her own investigative news website whenever she was ready. Love, lavish living, and laughter characterized their initial year of marriage. Yet beneath the glamour, a rift was forming. Anna noticed that William had a controlling streak. He began to question her interactions with male colleagues, criticized her for dressing down when she insisted on wearing comfortable clothes for errands, and discouraged her from pursuing anything that could cast negativity on his investments. She tried to brush these signs aside. After all, he was kind in many ways, and she still believed in his best intentions. Little did Anna know that the cracks in her dream marriage were only going to widen once she discovered she was pregnant, and that the child she carried would become the catalyst for heartbreak and revenge that no one could have predicted Anna had always wanted. A family growing up in a tight-knit household, she envisioned giving her own children the warmth and security she'd once had. Early one morning, after feeling a wave of constant nausea, she decided to pick up a pregnancy test from a pharmacy near their penthouse on Fifth Avenue. She took the test in the lavish marble bathroom with trembling hands. 2 lines are positive. Her heart soared with joy, imagining telling William that they were about to be parents. Perhaps, she thought, a baby would bring them closer together. Lately, William's controlling behavior had escalated. He was checking her phone, questioning her every expense. She hoped the news of their child would soften his rough edges, remind him of what truly mattered, beyond wealth and reputation. That evening, she prepared a special dinner at their penthouse, her mother's recipe for chicken enchiladas, fresh guacamole, and a creamy flan for dessert. She was determined to create a warm setting to announce the joyous news. William arrived late, looking harried, a deep furrow in his brow. He barely acknowledged the table filled with her carefully prepared dishes. Anna tried to lighten the mood, guiding him to sit, pouring him a glass of wine, which he accepted absent-mindedly. Then, with a beaming smile, she told him, "William, I'm pregnant. We're having a baby." A long silence followed. William set down his wine and stared at her. Anna expected happiness, relief, anything but the coldness that settled over his features. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight. "Are you certain it's mine?" Anna felt like she'd been slapped. She stammered through confusion and hurt, reminding him that she'd been faithful. But William's eyes burned with suspicion. He muttered about the timing being far from ideal, about how the responsibilities of fatherhood could weigh heavily on his business dealings, about how he needed to be absolutely sure. Anna was stunned. This wasn't the man who had courted her so sweetly, who had claimed to love every part of her soul. In the days that followed, William's behavior grew increasingly distant and dismissive. He demanded a paternity test, subtly casting doubt on Anna's character. Heartbroken Anna agreed to the test, desperate to prove she was telling the truth and to salvage their relationship. The results, of course, showed William was the father, yet his relief was overshadowed by cool calculation rather than joy. Anna overheard hushed phone calls, snippets about prenuptial agreements, potential legal ramifications. Although they had signed a prenup, the baby introduced new elements that might complicate William's finances and public image. One evening, he left for a business trip to Silicon Valley and never returned home. Days melted into weeks. Anna tried calling him, texting him, sending emails. His replies were curt and cold. She found out through a business news article that he had flown to London for a series of meetings with technology investors and had spent weekends hobnobbing with wealthy aristocrats in Monaco. All the while, Anna grew more anxious, battling morning sickness and heartbreak in their once cozy penthouse that now felt like a gilded cage. Harriet Sullivan, Anna's old mentor from the Austin Tribune, reached out to see how she was doing. Anna hesitated, but eventually confided that something was deeply wrong in her marriage. Harriet, protective as ever, urged her to not let William walk all over her. Harriet also reminded Anna that her investigative talents could be harnessed to uncover truths even within her personal life. More than once, Harriet said, "Don't forget you have the heart of a reporter. Use it if you need to." One day, Anna woke up and found a note on the dining room table, presumably delivered by one of William's staff in the early morning hours. The message was brief and devastating. William was ending their marriage. He demanded she move out of the penthouse. He wanted no further obligations toward her, except for a financial settlement that his lawyer would draft. Anna felt her entire body go numb, tears streaming down her cheeks as she read the letter. She was 4 months pregnant, exhausted, and tossed aside like an inconvenient piece of baggage. Broken but not beaten, Anna packed her belongings. She left the penthouse that same day, ignoring the sympathetic looks from the staff who had come to care for her. With nowhere else to go in New York, she booked a flight home to Austin. Her father Miguel picked her up from the airport, eyes brimming with concern when he saw his daughter pale and trembling. Though she tried to hold back tears the moment she collapsed into his arms, her anguish poured out. There in her childhood bedroom, Anna clutched her belly and resolved to protect her unborn child from William's cruelty. She also felt an ember of anger spark within her. For the first time, Anna found herself wondering if William had secrets, dark ones, and whether she had been chosen for his agenda rather than for love. In the weeks following her return to Austin, Anna wrestled with heartbreak, embarrassment, and fear about the future. She wanted to believe that William's abandonment was just a temporary lapse in judgment. But her calls and messages continued to go unanswered. His lawyer, a polished man named Maxwell Carmichael, reached out instead with a generous settlement offer and a confidentiality agreement. Anna was shocked by the coldness of it all. She was supposed to hush up her entire relationship, accept a payout, and vanish from William's life. Furious, she refused to sign immediately. Time slowed down in that painful limbo. Her belly grew rounder, a daily reminder of the life inside her, and the father who wanted nothing to do with them. Her parents, though supportive, were worried about finances. Patricia had just been through a health scare and was too weak to keep working. Double shifts, Miguel's mechanic shop needed urgent repairs and new equipment. Anna began to wonder if taking William's settlement might be the pragmatic move for the sake of her family and the baby. Yet a deeper instinct told her not to cave, that something about William's abrupt shift was more than just a selfish decision. There was something bigger beneath the surface. Determined to find answers, she contacted Harriet Sullivan again. Harriet visited Anna in Austin, taking her out for lunch at a cozy cafe, over steaming mugs of peppermint tea. Anna confided all the abrupt abandonment, the soulless note, the financial settlement, hush money. Harriet listened gravely, then offered a suggestion that would set Anna on the path of discovery. Investigate William's recent business dealings. Maybe his sudden decision to discard her had roots in hidden debts, shady partnerships, or an upcoming scandal that fatherhood would complicate. Energized by Harriet's idea, Anna began quietly digging. She scoured financial news articles, looking for clues about William Rutherford's ventures: Rutherford Real Estate Group, Rutherford Tech, Investments, Rutherford, Sustainable Energy. His empire seemed unstoppable. But then she stumbled on a line in a niche finance blog referencing Rutherford's questionable offshore accounts. A few more days of searching led her to a bigger puzzle. There were rumors that William had allegedly manipulated stock prices for one of his tech startups, WeConnect, by feeding false projections to investors. Officially, everything looked squeaky clean. but whispers in the finance community suggested otherwise. Anna also discovered an SEC inquiry had been launched quietly. No mainstream media source had covered it yet. A potential scandal of that magnitude could topple a man like William Rutherford. His image as a philanthropic sweetheart would be replaced by the label of a fraudster. Anna's journalistic instincts flared to life. Could William's decision to cut ties with her be part of a strategy to protect his empire? Perhaps he believed a pregnant wife, someone who might discover and reveal his secrets, was a liability. Or maybe he feared that if the scandal broke, she'd become an unwilling accomplice. Still, Anna needed more concrete evidence. She set up phone calls with ex-employees of Rutherford's companies, speaking under the guise of a journalist doing a feature. She reached out to old acquaintances in New York's philanthropic circles. She even ventured into the dark corners of online finance forums. Piece by piece, a disturbing picture emerged. William was rumored to be funneling investor money into personal projects, using shell companies registered in Caribbean havens to mask suspicious transactions. Though Anna lacked the smoking gun, the circumstantial evidence pointed to major financial misdeeds, and it was all hush-hush, probably because people feared William's litigious nature. Meanwhile, Anna had to face her personal challenges: doctor's appointments, the emotional toll of impending single motherhood, and the swirling confusion of heartbreak. Sleep grew elusive. She'd toss and turn in her childhood bed, glancing at her phone, hoping for a message from William that never came. Instead, Maxwell Carmichael's legal team kept sending her urgent requests to sign the settlement. They threatened that her refusal to comply would end in a drawn-out legal battle and zero support for the baby. Anna resolved that before she made any decision, she needed that smoking gun. She had to know the truth about William's underhanded dealings. If he was indeed committing financial crimes, she'd use that as leverage to ensure her child's future and reveal his true nature. If she discovered nothing, she'd sign the settlement, walk away, and pray for peace. The next day, she booked a flight to New York, telling her concerned parents that she needed just a few days to settle her business. Harriet agreed to meet her there. Donning a brave face and a trench coat that used to fit her better before pregnancy, Anna stepped back into the city that had once felt so glamorous, determined to uncover the truth about the man she had married. Anna checked into a modest hotel on the Lower East Side, far from the five-star accommodations she used to frequent with William. She used Harriet's press credentials to set up interviews under the pretext of writing a piece on philanthropy and tech entrepreneurs. Under that cover story, Anna managed to speak with lower-level employees in William's venture capital offices. Most were tight-lipped. William paid well, and loyalty ran deep. But a few discreetly hinted at suspicious transactions, though they were too scared to go on record. Desperate for more, Anna rummaged through corporate filings at the local business registries. Harriet helped cross-reference addresses and scanned through old newspaper archives for anything linking Rutherford's companies to known shell entities or past controversies. It was an uphill battle. William's legal team was adept at burying digital footprints, but Harriet had taught Anna the importance of patience in investigative work. If you keep searching, eventually a thread will appear. Their breakthrough came from an unlikely source, an accountant named Linda Farnsworth, who had once worked at Rutherford Tech Investments. Anna discovered Linda's name buried in a public lawsuit docket. She had sued Rutherford Tech for wrongful termination and settled out of court. After some coaxing, Linda agreed to meet Anna in a quiet bookstore cafe away from prying eyes. When Anna showed up, Linda looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder as if she expected to be followed. "It's not safe for me to talk about this, Linda," whispered, her fingers trembling around a cup of chamomile tea. I signed an NDA. I could lose everything if I revealed details. Anna leaned in, speaking softly, but with urgency. I'm William's wife, she said, voice breaking. He left me. I'm pregnant with his child, and I suspect he's involved in something illegal. I don't know what to do. Please, Linda. Anything you can tell me might help me protect my baby, protect myself. Seeing Anna's distress, Linda's expression softened. She began carefully explaining how, during her time at Rutherford Tech, she noticed large sums of money being transferred between several accounts that didn't match any official projects. She tried flagging it to her superiors, but they fired her under dubious circumstances. The settlement was quick and generous, provided she remained silent about her discoveries. Linda couldn't share documents, those were locked away. But the names of the suspicious accounts were forever etched in her memory. She scribbled a few cryptic references on a napkin: HT Holding, Nova Horizons, East Lake Consulting. Then she added, they're all linked, different addresses, but all roads lead to a private trust in the Cayman Islands. An electric surge ran through Anna's veins. She now had a lead. If she could tie these shell companies directly to William and track the money trail, it could confirm his involvement in fraud or embezzlement. She thanked Linda profusely, promising to keep her name out of it. The accountant left quickly, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and relief. Armed with these leads, Anna and Harriet dove back into research mode. They discovered that HT Holding had a small office address listed in Brooklyn, likely a front. Anna decided to check it out in person, though Harriet warned her to be cautious. One cold, drizzling morning, Anna took a taxi to the address, her heart pounding. The building was a run-down warehouse with no visible signage. She tried the door. It was locked. Peering through the dirty windows, she saw only dusty boxes and a reception desk stacked with unopened mail. Suddenly, a heavy-set man in a dark suit stepped out from behind the warehouse. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice gruff. Anna froze. She recognized him. He was one of William's security guards, often seen at social events. Her blood ran cold, murmuring an apology about being lost. She hurried away as quickly as she could, ignoring the guard's suspicious gaze. That moment cemented her fears William had layers of protection around his shady dealings, and if she dug too deep, she might be putting herself in danger. Returning to the hotel, she found Harriet waiting anxiously. Harriet's own research had yielded more references to shell entities linked to Rutherford's circle, though none directly named William. Still, it was enough for Anna to suspect that William was funneling money illegally. Harriet suggested they approach a major newspaper or an online investigative platform with what they had. But Anna wasn't ready. She needed a direct link, something that would unequivocally tie William to these accounts. Without that, it could be brushed off as rumors or personal vendettas. That night, Harriet left to meet a colleague, and Anna was alone in her hotel room. Half asleep, she heard her phone vibrate. The call was from an unknown number. A raspy voice hissed, "Stop poking your nose where it doesn't belong. Sign the settlement and walk away. You don't want to bring trouble on yourself or your baby." Before Anna could respond, the line went dead, shaken to her core. Anna realized the fight she was in was far more dangerous than she anticipated, but instead of scaring her off, it fueled her determination. She refused to be intimidated by shadowy threats. Memories of her father's advice floated back to her. Right is right, even if it's hard. You can't let fear control you. Besides, after everything William had done, Bonner wouldn't let him get away with hurting her, abandoning his child, and possibly defrauding countless investors, her unborn baby deserved justice, and she intended to secure it. The following day, Harriet arranged for Anna to meet a trusted investigative journalist, Mark Underwood, who worked for a reputable national paper. Mark had reported on corporate fraud cases before including high-profile exposés that led to resignations and lawsuits over coffee. Anna laid out her findings and expressed her fear that she didn't yet have the definitive proof to implicate William Rutherford. She needed Mark's network resources and expertise to solidify the story. Mark was intrigued. He agreed that the thread linking William to the shell accounts was the story's linchpin. "We need actual transaction data or testimonies from insiders who can confirm Rutherford's direct involvement," he said, scanning through Anna's notes. "Otherwise, it's circumstantial." While Harriet believed Mark could be trusted, Anna felt torn. If they went public too soon, William's legal team would discredit her as a spiteful ex-wife. She also risked him shutting down any remaining leads. Mark, sensing her internal conflict, reassured her they'd keep everything confidential until they had a rock-solid case. "But we've got to move quickly," he warned. "Money flows in and out of these shells fast. If Rutherford knows we're close, he'll bury them over the next few days." Anna collaborated with Mark's newspaper's research team, cross-referencing data from corporate registries and banking disclosures. She noticed that Harriet was uncharacteristically silent sometimes, leaving for hours without explanation. Anna guessed Harriet might have her own methods for unearthing information. She also found herself wishing she could confide everything to her family, but she didn't want to burden her mother and father with fear for her safety. At 5 months pregnant, her body was going through changes that left her exhausted, but she pushed through, driven by a fierce love for her unborn child. While scanning an SEC filing late one evening at the newspaper's office, Anna felt a sudden sharp pain in her abdomen. Alarmed, she tried to breathe steadily, telling herself it was just stress. She ended up in the break room, hands shaking. Mark found her pale and sweating, insisting on driving her to the nearest hospital. After an anxious examination, the doctor assured her the baby was fine, but warned her about overexertion. "You must reduce stress," he stressed. "Your child's health depends on it." That night, lying in a hospital bed, Anna realized she was treading a dangerous line. Should she sign the settlement, vanish from William's world, and give her baby a secure, if silent, future? Or should she keep pushing for the truth and risk everything? Images of William's betrayal collided with thoughts of the baby's uncertain future if Anna didn't secure child support. Then she remembered her father's words and Harriet's unwavering support. "You have the heart of a reporter." Harriet had said Anna couldn't live with herself if she walked away from the biggest story of her life, a story that was also deeply personal. She checked out of the hospital the next morning, resolving to push forward, but promising herself she'd be mindful of her health. Upon returning to the newspaper's office, Mark greeted her with an urgent expression. "We got something," he said quietly. A confidential source had provided partial access to some offshore transaction records. Among them was a reference to a W. Rutherford initiating a transfer to Nova Horizons, one of the shell companies Linda had mentioned. This was the first direct naming of William in the context of an overseas funnel. Mark believed they could use it to pressure more sources to come forward. Excitement and dread warred inside Anna. They finally had a tangible link, but it was still incomplete, just a single transaction. Nonetheless, they decided to approach a forensic accountant to verify its authenticity. If it checked out, they would be one step closer to undeniable evidence. The forensic accountant confirmed that the transaction was real, but cautioned that William's legal team would attempt to discredit the leak or claim that the W. Rutherford on record was someone else. They needed a pattern of transactions, an unequivocal paper trail. Just as Anna was preparing for another day of digital sleuthing, she received a call from Harriet, who sounded breathless. "Meet me at the place you first started digging, the coffee shop on 42nd Street." Harriet said, confused but trusting her mentor. Anna hailed a cab. When she arrived, Harriet handed her a small manila envelope, eyes glittering with excitement. "I told you, I had a few tricks up my sleeve," Harriet said. Inside the envelope were copies of bank statements linking multiple transactions from William Rutherford's personal trust to Nova Horizons Eastlake Consulting and several other shell entities. There were time stamps, official bank stamps, enough to create a damning mosaic of fraudulent activity. Anna gaped at Harriet. How Harriet just gave a knowing smile. "I'm an old reporter with old connections. Let's just say, not everyone in Rutherford's circle is loyal to him anymore. Word travels fast when someone abandons a pregnant wife." Tears pricked Anna's eyes. She hugged Harriet, whispering her thanks. With these documents, they had everything needed to reveal William's crimes. Anna sat at the edge of the bed in Harriet's apartment, the morning light filtering through gauzy curtains. Her heart raced, though she tried to still it, with deep, steady breaths. On the table before her lay the manila envelope, simple, unassuming, yet filled with the power to tear down an empire. Inside were irrefutable documents, bank statements, time-stamped transactions, the names of shell companies, all linked directly to William Rutherford. It was everything. Proof not only of his betrayal as a husband, but of his crimes as a public figure. Harriet's eyes sparkled with quiet pride as she poured Anna a cup of mint tea. "You ready?" she asked gently, placing the warm mug beside her. Anna's hand trembled slightly as she reached for it. The tea was meant to soothe, but nothing could dull the storm brewing inside her. "I don't know if I'm ready," Anna admitted, "but I know I have to do this." Mark Underwood, the seasoned journalist from the national paper, met them downstairs. His usual stoic expression had softened. He understood what this moment meant. They hailed a cab and rode in tense silence to the Midtown office of William's attorney, Maxwell Carmichael. The law firm was sleek, modern, sterile marble floors, glass walls, receptionists with emotionless smiles. As Anna stepped off the elevator, her baby shifted inside her, a small nudge against her ribs, as if reminding her, "I'm with you." Carmichael greeted them with that same smug, polished facade Anna remembered from earlier settlement talks. He gestured toward a conference room. "I assume this is about the settlement," he said smoothly, eyeing her belly as if it were an inconvenience Anna didn't answer. Instead, she opened the envelope and slid the documents across the table. For a moment, no one spoke. Carmichael's confident posture faltered as his eyes scanned the contents. The color drained from his face. His fingers twitched at the corner of the page, as if he wanted to tear the papers apart, but knew better. "Where did you get these?" he asked, voice low and sharp. Anna met his gaze, unwavering. "That's not your concern. What matters is that the truth is here in black and white." Harriet leaned in her voice, calm but firm. "These documents have been independently verified by forensic accountants. Every stamp, every signature, every transfer is legitimate." Mark added, "Our legal team is prepared to move forward with publication, but in the spirit of journalistic ethics, we're offering William the chance to respond before the story goes live." For the first time, the smooth-talking attorney looked rattled. He leaned back in his chair, jaw clenched. You realize the damage this will cause, not just to William, but to you as well. Public backlash, legal warfare. Is that really what you want? Anna swallowed hard. Her chest ached not from fear, but from years of suppressed truth, of love given and abused. What I want, she said slowly, is for my child to grow up knowing that his mother didn't cower, that I stood up for what was right. Carmichael's tone changed. Let's be civil. We can make this go away. How much do you want to keep this quiet? The words hung in the air like poison. Anna blinked. For a moment, she was back in that penthouse kitchen, setting down a homemade meal, announcing her pregnancy, with hope in her voice. Only now did she fully see the rot that had existed behind the marble countertops and designer suits. You're offering me a bribe, she said coldly, to bury the truth, to protect a man who left his pregnant wife and stole from thousands of investors. Carmichael began to protest, but Mark pressed a button on a small recorder in his pocket. The red light blinked. I wouldn't deny anything. You've said so far, he said, with a razor's edge in his tone. Harriet leaned forward. You know what's coming, and you know your client can't escape it. Silence fell again. Carmichael's confidence had withered. He stood stiffly, straightened his tie. You'll destroy William's entire legacy with this. He'll retaliate. Don't think he won't. Anna stood too. Her belly led the way, round and full of promise. He destroyed himself, she said. This is just the world seeing him for who he really is. With that, they walked out. The doors to the firm clicked shut behind them, like the closing of a chapter. Outside the city roared as usual. Horns, footsteps, the hum of people going about their lives. But for Anna, the world had gone silent for a moment. A great weight had lifted. The wind swept through the streets, and Anna inhaled deeply. Harriet placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did it. She didn't feel victorious yet. That would come later. But in that instant, Anna felt something she hadn't in months, 3 days. That's how long it took for Anna's world to change again. On the morning of the 3rd day, Anna stood by the window in Harriet's apartment, holding a warm cup of chamomile tea, her fingers wrapped tightly around the ceramic, like it was the only thing grounding her. Outside New York pulsed with life. Unaware that it was about to be shaken by a story too big to ignore, the article went live at exactly 8:07 a.m. Charitable financier or fraudster allegations mount against millionaire investor William Rutherford. The headline was bold-centered. Impossible to look away from. Mark Underwood's byline appeared just beneath it, alongside a small note with contributions from Harriet Sullivan and an anonymous source close to Rutherford. Anna's heart thudded as she scrolled. There it was, the full expose. Every detail, every transaction, every shell company, each account tied back to William. The documents Harriet had secured were featured as exhibits. But what drew Anna's eyes most were the words Mark had chosen to describe her. A woman betrayed, but not broken. A mother who refused to be silenced. A journalist who became the story she was born to write. By noon, the story had gone viral. National outlets reposted it. International ones translated it. Financial blogs tore through the implications. Pundits on cable news panels debated whether William Rutherford was merely ethically murky or a full-blown criminal, and social media. It exploded. Anna's face, captured in old paparazzi shots from galas and gala nights, smiling beside William in designer gowns, was now plastered across feeds with hashtags like pregnant whistleblower, Rutherford scandal, and disturbingly, "Gold digger or heroine? I can't believe how fast this is moving," Anna whispered, setting down her phone, hands trembling. Harriet turned from the kitchen, a pot of soup bubbling behind her. "You lit the match, sweetheart. Now watch the fire burn." But the fire didn't burn evenly. William's response was swift and brutal. By evening, his PR machine had kicked into full gear. Polished statements were released, denying everything. The documents were fabricated, the accusations vindictive and orchestrated, and Anna. According to them, she was a scorned, unstable woman attempting to extort a respectable businessman. They went further. They leaked private details of Anna's past. Her college essays, her social media posts from years ago, even misrepresented her academic work to imply she had radical views. The same woman who once posed beside William at galas was now being painted as a manipulative social climber. The smear campaign hit hard. Trolls flooded Anna's inbox. Comments appeared under every post about the article. Some sympathetic, others venomous. "You trapped him with that baby." She was always after his money. Typical journalist lies for fame. Anna tried to block it out. She kept reminding herself. This was about the truth, about justice, about Matteo. But when her father called from Austin, his voice shaking, she nearly broke Anna. "There's reporters outside the shop. They're asking questions, shoving cameras in my face. Your mother's not doing well. Her blood pressure's high. I'm so sorry, Dad." She choked out. Miguel's voice softened. "You did the right thing, mija, but it's going to be a rough storm. You hold on, you hear me? You hold on for that baby." The next day, things escalated again. William filed a defamation lawsuit, not just against the newspaper or Mark, but against Harriet and even Anna herself. He also requested a restraining order, accusing Anna of harassment. The irony nearly made her laugh, if it didn't hurt so much. At that point, Anna moved in full-time with Harriet for safety. Paparazzi lingered outside. Strangers took photos of her baby bump like it was tabloid gold. She tried to keep calm, to stay grounded. She began talking to her baby, more as if the tiny heartbeat within her could keep her own steady. "You're not just my reason to keep going," she whispered one night as she lay awake. "You're my proof that love still means something." And then, amid the chaos, came a call. A woman's voice, crisp and clear. "Anna Mendoza. My name is Dr. Cynthia Rollins. Harriet gave me your information. I'm an OB-GYN, and I'd like to offer you prenatal care, free of charge." Anna blinked, tears already gathering. Why, she asked, voice cracking. "Because what you're doing takes more strength than most people ever have, and I think you and your baby deserve someone in your corner." That night, Anna wept, not from fear or anger, but from gratitude. Weeks passed, and with every day, William's foundation crumbled more. Investors began pulling out. His board members resigned. And then came the moment Anna didn't expect. So soon, a federal investigation was announced. The charges were real. The government was watching. Still, it wasn't over. One night, unable to sleep, Anna scrolled social media. Despite Harriet's warning, a private message popped up. A user with no profile picture, no real name. "I used to work for Rutherford. I have more proof. Emails direct from him." He knew what he was doing. Anna's fingers hovered over the keyboard. A trap. "A lifeline with caution," she replied. Hours later, Mark had the emails, messages from William himself, discussing SEC regulations, skirting legal boundaries, laughing off accountability. That was the final crack. William's attorney, Maxwell Carmichael, was rumored to have stepped down. The man who once sneered across polished conference tables now disappeared from the spotlight altogether. But Anna, she stood firm. She was no longer the dumped wife. She was the woman who exposed a lie too big to ignore, who stood tall through the firestorm, who carried not just a child, but the truth. And through it all, Matteo kicked in her belly like he knew his mother had won the first of many battles for them both. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and cold resolve. Anna sat quietly at the plaintiff's table, 8 months pregnant, and wrapped in a navy blue maternity dress that hugged her belly like armor. Her hands rested protectively atop the swell of her child fingers, intertwined in a gentle prayer for strength. Around her, the air was heavy with anticipation. Journalists scribbling in notepads, murmurs from the public gallery, the low hum of microphones being tested. Across the room sat William Rutherford. Gone was the charismatic mogul, in tailored suits and confident smirks. His skin looked drawn, his eyes sunken. He wore a dark suit that seemed to hang loose on him, as if he were shrinking under the weight of the allegations. When their eyes met just for a heartbeat, Anna saw not the man who once whispered vows beneath chandeliers, but a stranger consumed by self-preservation. The trial had officially begun. A grand jury had indicted William on multiple counts: wire fraud, securities, violations, money laundering. The culmination of months of investigation, whistleblower accounts, forensic documentation, and Anna's courage. She had been subpoenaed to testify. As she made her way to the witness stand, each step felt like a mile. The courtroom fell silent, all eyes on the woman who had become a symbol of betrayal, of resilience, of justice. The bailiff held out a Bible. Anna placed her hand atop it, swore the oath, and sat. Her voice, though soft, carried weight. She told the truth, not just the facts, but the emotional toll. How William had walked out without warning. How she had been left to navigate pregnancy alone. How suspicion turned into discovery. And how she unearthed secrets meant to stay buried. Her hands trembled at times, her throat caught, but she never faltered. "I didn't set out to ruin anyone," she said, glancing toward the jury. "I just wanted to understand why someone I loved turned so cold. I didn't expect to find crime. But once I did, I couldn't look away." William sat motionless, eyes burning holes through the floor. Then came the cross-examination. His defense attorney, sharp and theatrical, attempted to flip the narrative. He painted Anna as vengeful, manipulative, driven by jealousy. He questioned her motives, her character, even her credibility as a journalist. "Isn't it true," he sneered, "that you were desperate for attention, that your investigation was really just an elaborate act of revenge?" Anna looked at the attorney, then to the jury. "No," she said simply. "What I was desperate for was the truth. For my child. For the people William hurt." Her composure silenced the room. Linda Farnsworth, the former accountant, who had first shared the names of the shell companies, also took the stand. Her voice quivered, but her testimony was devastating. She confirmed the suspicious money transfers, the internal warnings, ignored the fear of retaliation. Other former employees testified anonymously, describing a culture of secrecy and intimidation. The prosecution laid out its case with methodical precision: bank records, email chains, witness statements. Piece by piece, the image of William Rutherford as a titan of industry crumbled. The jury could see what Anna had seen long ago. A man so obsessed with power, he'd risk everything, including a family to preserve it. During breaks, Anna stepped outside to breathe. Journalists hounded her for quotes, but she said little. Her thoughts were focused inward on the life growing inside her. At night, she curled up in Harriet's guest room, Matteo kicking gently as if to remind her, "We're almost through." Then came the verdict. The jury deliberated for just under 4 hours. Anna sat holding Harriet's hand, her heart pounding so loudly she almost didn't hear the foreperson speak. Guilty. On multiple counts. William didn't speak, didn't flinch, but Anna saw his jaw twitch, his nostrils flare. He looked less like a man facing justice and more like a cornered animal, realizing the trap had finally sprung shut. Tears welled in Anna's eyes, not out of joy or triumph, but something deeper, a quiet grief. This wasn't just the end of a trial, it was the death of an illusion. The man she once thought she loved no longer existed. Maybe he never had. Outside the courthouse, reporters flooded forward, flashbulbs, microphones, questions shouted from every direction. Anna stepped up to the podium. Her voice again was soft but firm. "I didn't choose this path, but I chose not to stay silent. This case was never just about me. It was about truth, accountability, and what happens when powerful people think they're untouchable. I'm grateful the justice system worked, and now I'm going home to prepare for the most important role of my life, being a mother." She turned her chin high as Harriet and Mark flanked her protectively. Later that evening, Anna watched the news in silence. Pregnant wife topples tycoon. The headlines read, her face now, familiar to millions, flickered across the screen. But the woman looking back wasn't the same girl who once swooned in a private jet, dressed in borrowed diamonds. No, this woman was steel and warmth, fire and grace. The media attention was overwhelming, but Anna managed it on her own terms. She granted 2 interviews, one with a women's magazine, one with a major network, and in both she spoke not of revenge, but of responsibility. "I just want my son to grow up in a world where truth still matters," she said. And though critics still lingered in comment sections, their voices were now drowned by the flood of support letters, emails, care packages from strangers who saw her not as a scandal, but as a symbol of hope. With the child support and damages enforced by the court, Anna set up a modest trust fund for Matteo. She used a portion to begin something small but powerful, a non-profit newsroom dedicated to mentoring young women in investigative journalism, especially those from underrepresented communities. She named it the Sullivan Project, after the woman who had reminded her of her worth when she'd almost forgotten it. And through it all, each meeting, each call, each quiet night, feeding hope to the future, Anna stayed grounded by one undeniable truth. She had spoken, she had fought, she had won, and soon she would hold her son, knowing she had given him not just life, but legacy. In the last month of her pregnancy, Anna returned to Austin to be surrounded by family. Under Dr. Rollins's care, she gave birth to a baby boy she named Matteo Miguel Rutherford, keeping William's surname only so that the child would one day know his paternal identity. For better or worse, Matteo was born healthy, with a full head of dark hair that reminded Anna of her own baby pictures. Holding Matteo in her arms for the first time, Anna felt a surge of unconditional love, all the pain, the betrayal, the fear. It seemed distant in that moment. She vowed to devote herself to raising him with integrity, teaching him the values her parents had instilled in her. Her father, Miguel, wept tears of joy upon seeing his grandson, Patricia. Though frail, smiled brightly whenever she held the baby, whispering blessings in Spanish. 2 weeks later, while Anna was still recovering, Harriet stopped by with an envelope in hand. Inside was a short letter from William Rutherford, written from the Federal Detention Center. It was a strange mix of regret and bitterness. He denied some of the accusations, insisted he had truly loved Anna in his own way, and asked for a chance to see his son someday. Anna reread the letter multiple times, her emotions swirling anger, pity, sorrow. She penned a measured response, telling him that if he was sincere, he could start by admitting responsibility and taking steps toward restitution. She didn't promise visitation rights or forgiveness, only expressing that Mateo would learn the truth no matter what. Whether William chose to be a part of it in a positive way would be up to him. She mailed it and resolved not to dwell on it any further. In the months that followed, Anna began freelancing for major news outlets, focusing on corporate accountability stories. She found renewed purpose in her journalism, becoming an advocate for whistleblowers and pregnant women facing discrimination. Mark Underwood continued to publish hard-hitting exposés, sometimes consulting Anna for her insights. Harriet Sullivan returned to semi-retirement, but remained a guiding force in Anna's life, a maternal figure in the professional world. Word spread about Anna's work ethic and fearless reporting. Invitations to speak at conferences trickled in. She accepted only a few, wanting to balance her professional endeavors with the demands of motherhood. She was no longer the timid, starry-eyed girl who fell in love with a charming millionaire. She had become a woman who understood the power of truth, the necessity of courage, and the unbreakable bond of motherhood. And so life moved on. William Rutherford's downfall became a cautionary tale, a fleeting reference in the annals of corporate crime. Meanwhile, Anna's story wasn't just the pregnant wife who got dumped. It was about a woman who refused to stay silent in the face of betrayal, who discovered the strength within herself to stand up against corruption, and who ultimately emerged with something more valuable than all the millions in the world: a child she loved beyond measure, and a soul tempered by fire but unbroken. And that, dear viewers, is the remarkable, harrowing, and ultimately triumphant story of Ana Mendoza, the pregnant wife who was discarded by a millionaire but refused to be silenced. From her humble beginnings in Austin to standing up in a courtroom packed with cameras, she showed that love betrayed can transform into an unshakable resolve for justice. While William Rutherford's empire crumbled under the weight of his own deceit, Anna found her true purpose, mother to her precious son, and fierce advocate for truth. If this story moved you, please show your support by hitting the like button, sharing the video with friends who love real-life drama and redemption stories, and subscribing to our channel for more powerful narratives. Your engagement helps us reach more people who might find inspiration in Anna's bravery. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next deep dive drama.